Internet, my name is Ren. This is Rants, a channel where I rant about many things that I care about with a particular focus on pop culture and politics. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the Orville Season 2, Episode 11, Lasting Impressions. I'm going to give you a very brief, spoiler-free opinion of this episode, and then I'll give you a spoiler warning and talk about the plot of this episode and my opinion on it in a little bit more detail. So, without further ado, let's just jump in. Okay, my spoiler-free impression of this episode, and I am going to try to be as vague as humanly possible for this part, is that this may be one of my favorite episodes of the Orville ever so far. I think that this episode had so much going for it. I think it was emotionally a very strong episode, and it was a compelling story that I found myself very invested in. I also like that this episode was also pretty derivative of a very common trope that we've seen in pretty much every version of Star Trek post-original series, and I think that the direction they went with this and the way that they handled it was excellent. I think that they found a new way to tell this story, and it was incredibly engaging. The characters were really strong, and in this episode we get kind of a one-time side character who is just so likable. And I think that there were just all of these little parts to this episode where it could have gone in a weird direction or it could have gotten cliched. And at first I was a little bit worried after how romantic relationships were handled in Jaloja that we were going to get kind of a similarly awkward episode where I wanted to like it, but there would just be a little too much cringe for me. But it ended up working out perfectly. The ending of this episode came pretty close to making me cry a little bit. I mean, I cry a lot when I watch movies and TV, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a squishy little sensitive person like that. And I think this is the first time that the Orville really got close to bringing me to tears, because they just told such a lovely story. And even though it doesn't quite turn out the way that part of you really hopes it will, the ending makes sense. And it's just very well done. So I don't really know if there's anything else that I can say about this episode without spoiling some things about it, so go watch the episode and then come back and we will talk spoilers. This episode has an A plot and a B plot. It definitely spends the bulk of the time in the episode on the A plot, and I think that's the right decision for sure. But we do get a fun little B plot with Bortus and Clyden, and it's nice comic relief to some of the heavier emotions that we deal with for parts of this episode. So I am going to actually go through the A plot first because I love it, and then I'll briefly tell you a little bit about the B plot. So the A plot of this episode is basically that someone has brought a time capsule aboard the Orville that was made in the 21st century. In it are a myriad of everyday items like toothpaste, cigarettes, a cell phone, just all kinds of little things.
A find of this type is always thrilling in this day and age. The time capsule was unearthed by an excavation team just north of Albany. It seems it was a community project of some kind.
We also get a wonderful cameo from Tim Russ, who played Tuvok in Star Trek Voyager, which was awesome. I love him. I've seen him in a few other things, but it's always nice to see him back in his sci-fi roots. And basically the premise of this episode is that Lamar and Gordon try to get the phone running again. And so they dumb down the circuitry and the reconstruction program, and they manage to get the phone working, and they find a treasure trove of data. Messages, photos, videos, including a video filmed by the owner of the phone, a girl named Laura.
Well, hi, I'm Laura Huggins, and if you're seeing this, you found my phone. So, I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York, and some people in my town had this idea to make a time capsule.
Who basically talks about why she put her phone in the time capsule and how they're free to look through all of her stuff because she's long dead.
Have fun getting to know who I was.
You know, to find out who she was. And instantly we see that Gordon is a little bit charmed by this woman from the past. So he takes the phone to the simulator and he creates a simulation by extrapolating it from all of the data on the phone, basically of Laura's life. So he goes into the simulation to meet her, and it's basically at a party at her house. He pretends to be a friend of her friend Lorenzo, and she asks him if his uniform is pajamas or what's going on, and so he tells her that he lost a bet, so he had to wear that. And she offers him a tour of her apartment. And she reveals that she broke up recently with her boyfriend Greg, and that she sings, which of course, as we know, Gordon sings as well, and so he's even more charmed by that. And we can definitely see that they're kind of bonding. Of course, everyone else thinks that what Gordon's doing is a little bit strange, but he goes back onto the simulator, holodeck, to visit Laura again, and this time it's at a pub where she sings.
I've got to say.
And she's a lovely voice, and he's enchanted. She gives him her phone number, and he simulates, replicates a phone, and connects it to Laura's simulated version of her phone. And he begins texting and calling her and having fun getting to know her. And then he decides to bring Ed, Kelly, Tala, and John with him to a game night at Laura's place.
What was the cereal? It's a Caesar salad.
Yeah, see, no, you can't draw.
Oh, come on.
A salad doesn't have tiny little flakes like that. They're bigger.
A Cobb salad does.
What the hell does a Cobb salad have to do with Julius Caesar?
Anybody know what time it is?
After Lamar, Ed, Kelly, and Tala exit the simulation, Gordon hangs back with Laura and helps cure her of her fear of flying by explaining the physics of turbulence. And they hook up and seem to be having a good time getting to know each other. And Gordon oversleeps after their hookup and shows up to his shift late, and it's definitely frowned upon. And his friends are very concerned. He's texting with Laura, he's getting calls from Laura, she's sending him little pictures and memes and things, and they seem to be having a great time. But then later, when he re-enters the simulation again, he finds Laura and Greg, and it's a painful scene, but I do like how they handle it, because Gordon's obviously hurt, but he doesn't really attack her or try to make her feel bad.
You have every right to be angry.
I'm not angry. I'm fine. If it's what you feel, it's what you feel.
And she tells him she's trying to work things out with Greg, and Gordon exits the simulation, but then he can't help himself, and he deletes Greg. And this moment really reminded me of the Fairhaven episode in Star Trek Voyager, where Captain Janeway connects with an Irish hologram and then decides to delete the wife because she wants to get to know him in a romantic sort of way, and then she starts doing all kinds of things to modify and change the program. So Gordon re-enters the simulation having deleted the boyfriend, only to find that Laura's changed. There are still lots of things about her that he likes, but she doesn't sing anymore. She doesn't have the confidence to sing on stage, because it turns out her confidence to sing came from Greg, because he was the one who encouraged her. And there's this amazing scene after he realizes that, between him and Kelly, where Kelly comes to talk to him because she heard what happened, and she explains that Ed taught her a quirky eye trick, and that's a characteristic of hers that would never exist if someone deleted Ed from her life. And she makes this amazing point about how humans, when we're born, we're a blank slate, we're a tabula rasa.
When we're born, we're a blank slate. And over the course of our lives, we expand and grow as a result of external stimuli.
Pretty dry philosophy.
Sounds it, but it's not. Every single one of us is shaped by the totality of
Tabula
our life.
rasa, and the relationships around us, whether they're good relationships or bad relationships, are what shape us and form us into who we are. And there was just something so beautiful about that, and that was one of those moments that really felt like Star Trek to me, where they were making this wonderful universal truth about the human condition, like, framed in all of this wild sci-fi. And it was just beautiful. This episode was beautiful. And I really liked the kind of different direction they went with it, because Gordon restores the program and he goes back and he sings a duet with Laura as friends.
That's all I have to tell you. That's all I've got to say.
And they take a picture on her phone because she's going to put it in the time capsule soon. And he tells her that he's leaving because he got offered a job across the country to pilot a new kind of aircraft that could maybe make it to space. And it's just such a tender resolution to the story. And it's one of those moments that really kind of cements Gordon's character and who he is. And I like that we got another Gordon episode where we focus a little bit more on him and his interactions and relationships with other people. I would say it's a little weird how the Orville this season seems to bunch up the focused episodes. Like, we got all of the Mocklin focused episodes bunched up together, and then we got this episode and the previous Gordon episode sort of bunched up together. I think that might not be the best strategy. I kind of would like if they had maybe spread those episodes out a little bit more so that we feel like there's more time passing between them and more character growth. But, I mean, really, that's just a nitpick more than anything else. So, the A-plot of this episode just kind of blew me away. It wasn't because it was a super original idea. We've had people falling in love with people on the holodeck basically forever. But I was impressed. I was really thrilled with it. The B-plot of this episode was definitely a little bit lighter. It was very much kind of a comic relief sort of thing. Basically what happens is Bortus discovers some cigarettes that have been put in the time capsule, and he decides to try them. So he and Clyden begin replicating cigarettes, synthesizing cigarettes, and smoking them, and it's revealed that apparently Mocklins have an incredible susceptibility to nicotine addiction, to the point where they both get the shakes if they don't smoke for 10 minutes, and we have Bortus smoking cigarettes on the bridge, and their quarters are just a fog of cigarette smoke. And so Dr. Finn explains that they have to quit or they'll become so addicted they can't even go a few seconds without a puff. And they don't have a good time quitting. They get very irate with each other, they fight each other, they hide cigarettes from each other or sneak cigarettes. And it all comes to a head when they get into an actual fist fight and they're rolling around on the floor wrestling. And then Dr. Finn walks in and is amazed at how things have degenerated. But she gives them the injection, they're able to break their nicotine habit, and everything goes back to normal. But it was a very entertaining little B-plot, and I liked that it was sort of interspersed with some of the heavier stuff in this episode. This obviously wasn't a super heavy episode, but I really like Gordon, and seeing Gordon sad always bums me out. So having that to kind of break up Gordon's hard time was nice. And, you know, it was definitely kind of a negligible part of the episode for me. Like, it was funny, but I could take it or leave it. I was really mostly just very, very impressed with how well they handled the A-plot. So I guess that's all I have to say about this episode. I'm finally almost caught up, so I will be reviewing the next episode when it comes out on Hulu for me tomorrow. I'll probably try to get that out sometime this weekend. And I will try to catch back up with Star Trek Discovery after the Orville is done for this season. Okay, so let me know what you thought about this episode in the comment section down below. Do you think it's comparable to a lot of the episodes we'd have with holodeck plot lines in older versions of Star Trek, or do you think that what they've done here is a little bit more unique? I'd love to hear what you think. So that's everything I have for you. See you next time. Be safe.